Thank you.
Thanks.
So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Mallory Howard. I'm the assistant curator here at the Mark Twain House and Museum. You can see I'm coming to you live from the drawing room. So I want to go over a few things before we jump into our conversation. So the first thing is I just want to point out some features of Crowdcast, the platform we are using. First, you'll notice at the bottom of the screen a green button to donate now. Any donations at the moment will be increased by 15% due to our Birdies for Charity program. We truly appreciate any amount you can give, whether it's $1, $100, anything in between. It really helps support the museum efforts in keeping Mark Twain's legacy alive with various initiatives, and it helps us put on interesting programs like the one you're viewing today. So thank you so much if you're able to give anything. On the right side of the screen, you'll notice a chat feature. So please feel free right now to tell us where you're tuning in from. Usually we get visitors from all over the world, so please let us know where you're watching. And also feel free to give us some insight, your thoughts during the program, any comments that you have, we'd love to hear it. Finally, you'll notice at the bottom of your screen, once again, an Ask a Question feature. So if you have a question for one of our speakers, we'll be doing a Q&A session at the end of the program. Please make sure you put your questions in that Ask a Question feature at the bottom and not in the chat to make sure we get to yours. And then finally, I just want to thank our sponsors. Programs at the Mark Twain House Museum are supported by the Wish You Well Foundation and Connecticut Public Radio, WNPR. And of course, the program is produced with support honoring the legacy of Frank Lord, who's a dear friend of the museum. So with that getting said, I'm going to start our introduction. So we are very delighted to welcome Dr. Virginia de la Cruz Lichet of the University of Lorraine in France, one of Europe's foremost experts on postmortem photography and the author of Postmortem, the book we're discussing. Also Cecilia Casas de Santos of the Communications and Educational Department of Soralbo Museum in Madrid, Spain. And then we have Andy Lozoita, who will be translating for us. So welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to have you.
Thank you so very much, Mallory. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, so before we jump into some of the questions I have for you, I have to say the book is absolutely gorgeous. It is hauntingly beautiful. And so we're going to bring up a few images of the book and some of the photographs it contains so our audience can see what it looks like. I highly recommend it. It is absolutely stunning. So we're just going to take a look at some of the images here briefly. All right, so hopefully people enjoyed that sneak peek. Like I said, I had a wonderful time going through the book, both for how beautiful the photographs are and for all the information that I was able to discover by reading it. So just to start out, can you tell us a little bit about the collector of the photographs, Carlos Aresas, why he started collecting postmortem photography, and how did both of you become involved in this project?
Pregunta sobre el coleccionista, cómo llegasteis a conoceros, por qué empezó la colección y un poco que expliques esta historia.
Ok, realmente la colección, Carlos empieza a hacer la colección desde hace bastante tiempo, aunque él es ya un gran coleccionista y concretamente hacía antes una colección de niños de comunión y después continuó con esta colección también y nosotros empezamos a trabajar con este libro. Me presentaron su colección, Fernando, nuestro editor de la editorial Titilante, y a partir de ahí empezó el proyecto juntos.
So Carlos is a collector. He has collected other kind of pictures for a very long time. He collects as well as he collects postmortem photography. He collects communion photographs of children, old ones. And they met because their publisher introduced each other, and they got to know each other this way, and that's how she got in contact with Carlos.
Great. Ooh, Cecilia, we can't hear you.
Oops, sorry.
There you go.
I would like to add that Carlos is a well-known actor here in Spain, and he is also author of comic books. So he has a very wide profile on ads, and I joined the project when Virginia contacted me at the beginning of this year, just to make the catalog.
Wonderful. And so just in case our viewers need a little bit of background, can you define or explain what postmortem photography is?
Virginia, ¿puedes definir lo que es la fotografía post-mortem? Darnos un poco de historia, de entender de dónde viene.
A ver, voy a intentar ser sintética. Bueno, cuando hablamos de fotografía post-mortem voy a ir parándome, Andy, para que puedas traducir. Es cuando aparece un cuerpo sin vida en la imagen fotográfica. Dale.
Okay, it's the definition, a brief definition would be when there is a body that is not alive in picture. That's the brief definition of it.
Pero hago una distinción entre la fotografía de difuntos y la fotografía post-mortem. Las fotografías que se ven en el libro son fotografías realizadas durante el rito funerario, es decir, el cuerpo preparado para la visión de la muerte. Continúo luego, te dejo traducir.
So there's a difference between, there are two kinds of pictures. Pictures of people who have passed away and pictures of bodies that have been prepared. And that would be the post-mortem photography, when the body has been prepared for the picture.
La diferencia, por ejemplo, es cuando vemos un cadáver, ahí hablaríamos de cadáver, por ejemplo, de un cuerpo en un campo de batalla. El cuerpo no tiene dignidad en la representación, a diferencia de los retratos que estamos viendo en este libro, los retratos de difuntos, en el que hago esa diferencia, donde a través de la presentación lo que se pretende dar a ese cuerpo es la dignidad para ser visto.
So the main difference is that when we have a picture of somebody who has passed away, for example, in a battlefield, there is no dignity in this picture. As there in the postmortem photography, what we pretend is to find this dignity, to prepare the picture, to give this dignity to the person who has passed away.
Wow. Very interesting. So what,
Es muy
for both of
interesante.
you, what was your initial reaction when you saw the images in this collection for the first time? Did anything surprise you, or was it different than other post-mortem photography collections you've seen?
Es una pregunta para las dos. Virginia, si quieres puedes empezar tú. Pregunta si cuando visteis la colección hubo algo que te sorprendió o algo que viste que era diferente en esta colección. Algo que te llamó la atención.
Siempre hay algo que me sorprende cuando hay una colección nueva, fotografías nuevas de países distintos, pero también es cierto que llevo casi 20 años viendo fotografías de difuntos y raro es que me sorprenda mucho hoy en día, aunque en su momento sí, siempre hay alguna fotografía, concretamente la de los niños, sobre todo cuando hay un niño acompañado por otro niño vivo, que suele ser el hermano o los hermanos. Esas son las que a mí más me punzan, como diría Barthes.
There is always something surprising in every picture that she finds and every new picture in different countries, especially in different countries. But she's been doing this for 20 years. So from now she's seen a lot. So sometimes it's difficult to surprise her, but it is true that in this collection, the children especially make you feel. And children who pose with their brothers and sisters or other children who are alive. And these are especially difficult, special. Cecilia?
Yeah. I'm not a specialist in postmortem photo, but I'm a curator of historical photography. So for me, the approach to the collection was by the photographical artifact, if you want to put it in that words. So for me, it was quite shocking to face the whole collection of postmortem, and it was, I must confess, very entertaining. Yes.
It is fascinating to look at them,
Yeah.
I must
Yeah,
say.
and to work with them. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
Es fascinante ver las fotos.
Virginia, why were you drawn to studying the subject of postmortem photography?
Virginia, ¿qué te llevó a estudiar las fotografías postmortem?
Bueno, lo que me llevó a estudiar este tema fue, empecé a trabajar con un archivo fotográfico rural de un fotógrafo gallego, Virgilio Vieites, y dentro de su archivo era un fotógrafo de pueblo y hacía todo tipo de fotografías, retratos de comunión, de bodas y también retratos de difuntos. Y cuando descubrí ese material fue cuando empecé a cambiar mi idea de tesis, y derivé a esta temática de una forma natural porque me hice muchas preguntas a partir de este descubrimiento en un archivo de pueblo.
So the first contact that she had was in Galicia, in the north of Spain, over near Portugal, where she got to see the collection or the files of a photographer. I didn't get the name, Virginia, el nombre del fotógrafo.
Virgilio Vieites.
Vieites. And he was a photographer from a town, a country photographer, and then he made pictures of weddings and communions, and he had postmortem photography as well. And that was the first contact. And she changed her interest straight away, and she got interested in this, and that's when it all started.
I don't blame you. I would probably do the same thing.
Dice que le hubiese pasado lo mismo. Que lo entiende perfectamente.
Can you talk, you've mentioned this throughout the book, the good death. Can you talk a little bit about what that means?
Quiere que expliques un poco lo que es la buena muerte.
La buena muerte, o los libros que hablaban del arte del buen morir o del bien morir, era cuando el difunto moría con todas las cosas arregladas en el mundo de los vivos, es decir, todos los pagos realizados, acompañado por la familia, habiendo hecho su última confesión, con la extrema unción. Eso es la buena muerte, y sobre todo lo más importante es acompañado de los familiares en el momento del tránsito.
So the good death is the death that is considered the art of the good death, and it means that before you die, you have done everything you're supposed to do. You have paid all your debts. You don't owe anybody money. You have what else? Oh, you have died surrounded by your family and confessed before you die. So that is the good death.
I never knew that. So learning so much from this. Thank you so much.
Hay que estar aprendiendo mucho de todo esto.
Is there, and this is for both of you once again, is there a particular photograph in this collection that really piqued your interest or stood out to you? And if so, why?
Dice que digáis una foto que os haya llamado la atención por alguna razón y que expliquéis por qué. A las dos, Virginia.
Cecilia, te dejo primero si quieres.
Cecilia.
Me first? Okay. For me, given the approach I was talking about before that I made to the collection, for me, I liked very much to work with the think types. Those photos made on tin, you know, like to imitate the daguerreotypes and daguerreotypes, and to be able to have one of them in my hand and so on, because I've seen very few of them. And to be able to work with daguerreotypes also, it was for me very satisfying.
En mi caso, la fotografía que más me impactó de la colección de Carlos fue la de los 3 recién nacidos bebés difuntos, trillizos, supongo, y que da cuenta de una época en la que los niños se morían y se morían de forma natural y habitual, y que nos recuerda las epidemias precisamente. A las que no nos habíamos acostumbrado nosotros, ¿no? Como antiguamente era costumbre, que era habitual conocer estos episodios de epidemias y muertes en la familia.
It's the picture of the 3 newborn, the triplets who died, and it brings us to a time where where infant death was very common because of disease or because of epidemics that we had forgotten, and now we got to see again. We weren't used to them anymore, and that's the picture that she remembers more.
Well, we're very fortunate. We didn't know if we'd be able to make this happen, but the collector of the collection, Carlos Orejas, is here, and he's going to join us. So I'm going to read a little bit about him before we bring him on screen. So Carlos Orejas is a keen collector of comics, books, albums, toys, and vintage photography, post-mortem in particular. For more than 16 years, he's looked in old markets, antique shops, auction houses, websites in Europe, the United States, wherever they could be found, fascinated by the beauty of these old images and the vast amount of feelings they prompt. His incredible collection is reproduced in its entirety in this book and continues a visual proof of what is considered. So if we want to welcome Carlos on screen, I would love to ask him a few questions.
Hi.
Hello, Carlos.
Can you see me?
We can. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's miraculous.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to pop in and chat with us.
I don't think it was going to happen, but finally
you made it.
Yeah.
So can you just talk a little bit about why you decided to collect post-mortem photography? I know you mentioned you saw the movie The Others, which I love. That's one of my favorite movies. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, but I think there's a translator here.
Sí, Carlos, puedes.
Sí,
Estoy
okay.
aquí.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
Bien.
Bueno, pues lo voy a decir en español porque es más rápido, porque si no...
Vale.
Vale. Efectivamente, fue viendo la película de Los Otros que yo descubrí que existía este género en particular.
It's with The Others, with the film, that he discovered that postmortem photography existed.
Y al principio no sabía si era una licencia artística o realmente era un tipo de foto que se hacía en la antigüedad, y empecé a investigar y descubrí que efectivamente era un género.
First of all, he didn't know if it was something from the picture from the film or if it was real. And he started investigating, and then he found out that it really did exist.
En aquel momento, las únicas fuentes para conseguir algún tipo de coleccionismo de este tipo de fotos eran casas de antigüedades, librerías de segunda mano. Claro, Internet no era lo que era hoy.
The only way to find these pictures were in bookshops and stores with old things, but he wasn't able to find them in the internet right now.
Así que mis comienzos fueron tímidos y mi colección ganó volumen básicamente gracias al desarrollo de algunas casas de venta, de subastas por internet.
So it was at the beginning, his collection was kind of shy and small, and then little by little with the changes and the internet, he was able to get more in his collection.
How long did it take for you to collect what you have now?
¿Cuánto tiempo te llevó?
About 16 years or something like. But not buying continuously, but I am a huge collector of many things. So every collection has to wait to the right moment to, bueno, voy a seguir en español, ¿vale?
Sí, tú sigue, pero lo estás haciendo muy bien.
Vale, nada, que digo que bueno, tengo muchas colecciones abiertas, entonces suelo ir, pues de repente tengo un periodo en el que compro más tebeos, en el que compro más afiches de cine. Entonces, bueno, la fotografía antigua y concretamente la post-mortem ha sido a lo largo de 16 años, pero bueno, alterno.
So he has many collections that he starts, and every collection has its time. So when it gets to one, he starts with comics, and then he finishes that, and it's taken him 16 years to get to the point where his collection is now, his photographies.
And I just asked Cecilia and Virginia what their favorite photograph is from the collection. Do you have a favorite photograph?
Yes, I have some of them that are special to me, but it's so complicated to express, to identify the photographs because we haven't named them. So to say one of the easiest, la de los trillizos.
So he would say the triplets as well.
Oh.
The three
So
ladies.
everyone has to buy the book so that you can see why Virginia and Carlos are so infatuated with the triplets photo.
Virginia también la elegido. Claro,
Sí.
Es especialmente dramática porque son tres niños que parecen hermanos, fallecidos los tres. Desde luego tiene una carga dramática especial. Probablemente también una de las
It's because of the drama in the picture that there are probably three brothers that are passed away, the three of them, and that's what it makes it different. Perdona, Carlos.
Probablemente una de las que yo considero más especiales de mi colección es la última que conseguí, que es un daguerrotipo, es un daguerrotipo que es foto de uno de los capítulos que representa a un hombre trajeado, un hombre con corbata, que creo recordar que tiene corbata, que se muestra el daguerrotipo con el marco y sin el marco. Esta es una de las últimas fotos que conseguí, yo creo que es de las más especiales porque es de las que mejor conservadas están y bueno, probablemente sea también una de las más antiguas. ¿Me oís?
Sí.
Ah.
He also is talking about the last picture he got, and I think it's the beginning. It's at the beginning of one of the chapters. I didn't hear it very well. And it's a man that's in his suit and tie, and you can see the same picture with the frame and without the frame, and it's very well preserved. And that's one of the special pictures for him as well.
Wow, thank you for sharing that.
Gracias por compartir.
One last final question before we let you get back to your busy schedule. What made you want to work on this project and make your collection available for the public through this book?
A ver, todos los coleccionistas, en el fondo, disfrutamos mostrando las piezas a otros coleccionistas y a otras personas que sabemos que pueden apreciarlo y que pueden disfrutar de estas pequeñas ventanas al pasado.
All collectors want to have the opportunity to share, to be able to share what they have with other people. So for him, it's like a window to the past.
Yo creo que gracias a que se conservan muchas piezas de cualquier campo artístico, tanto de pintura como de fotografía, como de dibujo, de incluso colecciones de tebeos o colecciones de libros, y que haya un volumen en el que quede.
I think he's breaking up a little.
Yeah. I didn't get to understand the idea.
Okay. Well,
I think he was saying that the opportunity to get all the pieces of his collection in one book,
Okay.
for him is it's a great legacy.
Mhm.
And as a curator of a house museum funded by a collector, as I am, I can tell you that Carlos is he has the perfect collector profile, like the classic profile of the collector that is very passionate about what he is collecting, and all the time he wants to share and to make other people participate of what he is collecting. And I think this was the idea.
You're right. Curators love a good collector when they're organized and they're passionate and they really get what they want. And we're very grateful to Carlos for sharing his collection with the world. It's absolutely incredible. I've seen many postmortem photographs, but these really were very touching. And like I said earlier, sort of that hauntingly beautiful. So thank you to him, and thank you to him again for joining us. So to continue our conversation, another thing I found really interesting was that throughout the book, you showed the backs of some of the photographs, which showed inscriptions. So can you talk about how common that was on the backs of the photographs? What type of information did that provide? And Cecilia, as someone cataloging that, I'm sure that was probably helpful in giving you additional information.
Está preguntando por las inscripciones que hay detrás en la parte de atrás y la clase de información que os ofrecía las inscripciones que venían. Y si es muy habitual encontrar inscripciones en la parte de atrás de las fotografías.
¿Quieres contestar tú primero,
No.
Virginia? ¿No?
O contesta tú, que has hecho la
Vale, okay. Yes, at the back of the photos, it's quite common to find those inscriptions, those but we have to be clear, not all the time those inscriptions are related to the family of the deceased, and sometimes are very posterior, very late to the photo, to the production of the photo itself, because sometimes other collectors or sellers are taking notes at the back, and you have to be very cautious. How do you take that information for real, or you don't want to get that for granted, that it's authentic? But it's true that many times they give many useful information, for instance, about the age of the disease, or sometimes a date for the passing away, or even the name of the disease. So yes, but with precaution.
Mhm.
Para añadir lo que ha dicho Cecilia, la información más fiable es la que viene por parte del fotógrafo. Es decir, que ahí sí podemos investigar, porque hay información, podemos saber si ha tenido alguna medalla, cuándo ha abierto el estudio, porque normalmente aparece en el sello del fotógrafo. Entonces, esa es la información más fiable que nos permite incluso afinar la fecha de la fotografía.
So the information that you can really trust is information that comes from the photographer. Because there, in the stamp that they usually have in the picture, they can see, or a medal, that you can see the studio it comes from and when they did it and a date. So that is the information that you really can trust.
Yes, the information that the photographer itself puts in the artifact, it's for real. Others, you have to take them with caution.
That's very true. Working at a museum, you're always trying to investigate and sort of separate fact from fiction. So it can be quite a monumental task. Another theme I noticed throughout a lot of the photographs is the use of greenery or flowers. Can you talk a little bit about why that is and if it signifies anything in particular?
El uso de vegetación y de flores, lo que significa, lo que quiere decir, lo que expresa en las fotografías, porque ha visto que hay muchas fotografías que lo tienen.
En el caso de adultos es un poco distinto al caso de los niños. En el caso de adultos muchas veces tiene más que ver con la familia que ha pagado para una corona floral, es decir, que ha hecho un pago y que no puede estar presente, entonces se fotografía para mostrar pues por aquello que han pagado y para acompañar al difunto. Eso normalmente en el caso de los adultos. ¿Quieres traducir ya o paso?
Sí, there's a difference between the adults and the infants and the children. For the adults, usually it's because some part of the family wasn't able to assist to the funeral, so a way of being there is getting flowers for the deceased. And then the other case is the children.
Y en el caso de los niños, tiene más que ver con una imagen que se parezca a una especie de paraíso donde el niño ya está, es decir, una imagen que ayude para el luto y que dé una visión amable, más edulcorada, dulce del niño muerto en realidad.
And when it's about the children, the flowers try to put this children in a paradise to make us think that he's already there, and for the family, for the grief of the family. So what they're trying to have is a sweeter image, a sweeter view of the child.
Wow, I never knew that. That's fascinating information. Thank you for sharing that. So Carlos, I believe, wants to come on and say a quick goodbye to us. So here we go.
Yes, my
Sorry,
Wi-Fi is not working properly, so I'm very sorry. I'm not going to be a lot of time because I'm afraid it's going to fail again. But I'd like to say goodbye to all of you and to say hello to Virginia, who I didn't really have met before, and say hi to Cecilia, who was in my house working with my photographs, and say thanks to you all for this conversation.
Well, thank you so much. We're so happy that you were able to join us and appreciate it. And thank you for sharing your beautiful collection with the world. It's just wonderful for you to do that.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Carlos.
Bye.
Great. I'm so glad we were able to say goodbye to him. I know he left kind of abruptly. So just a reminder to our audience, we are going to start the Q&A section very shortly. So as I said earlier, if you look at the bottom of your screen at that Ask a Question button, just go in there and you can type a question. that hopefully we'll be able to ask our speakers. So something that I was really fascinated by was the professional photographer coming in and taking these images. So do you know, Virginia, did the photographer have a lot of artistic control in how the photo was set up? Did the family decide, or was it a combination of the two?
Le ha fascinado desde el principio la preparación de la fotografía y saber si era el fotógrafo el que decidía cómo se preparaba esa fotografía, si era la familia o si era algo que acordaban.
Bueno, eso cambia con el tiempo. Al principio era bastante casero, es decir, que la familia preparaba el cuerpo como se hace habitualmente para el rito, o se hacía habitualmente para el rito funerario, y el fotógrafo llegaba y podía manipular un poco la escena más bien por cuestiones técnicas de iluminación. Incluso podía llegar a desplazar el cuerpo para ir hacia una ventana, por ejemplo. Pero era una combinación de los dos. Y luego, con el tiempo, ya son las empresas, las funerarias, las que se dedican a hacerlo todo.
So, it's at the beginning, when it started, it was very homemade, and the family would be the people who would prepare the body, would dress them up, and would prepare everything. And then the photographer came in and could decide about the light for that he needed for the picture. So it would be possible for him to move the body close to a window, but that would be more or less it. Mainly they did it both, but then the professionals would do it. Later, after this time, it evolved, and it was the professionals who decided how it would be seen, how it would be done.
And I think you even mentioned that sometimes the bodies would be brought to the photography studio. Is that true?
Dice, sí, es verdad que a veces se llevaban al estudio fotográfico los cuerpos.
Sí, pero al principio, muy al principio. Entonces, a veces se ven fondos pintados de paisaje, como se hacían en los retratos de estudio normales, pero rápidamente salieron leyes que prohibieron por cuestiones de salubridad este tipo de práctica.
So it was at the very beginning where they would take the bodies to the studio, and there they could even take the picture with some background, like in a portrait. But this changed very quickly because of the laws, because of health issues, I suppose, and then that the laws banned moving the corpse. So it stopped.
Great, thank you. There's so many wonderful photos. They're such a variety. How was it decided how to organize them or categorize them throughout the book?
Pregunta cómo se catalogaron y se organizaron las fotos. Supongo que Cecilia, ¿no?
Well, when I began to work with that collection, it came to my attention that there was no catalog number of them. They are just in line, in line in the order of appearance at the book. And this is it. So I had to work going through different formats, because at Carlos' home, they are organized by size and by format, but not according to the order of appearance at the book. So it was quite challenging for my curator brain, which is, we always expect to have everything tagged and with a number and in the perfect. But this is very normal in a private collection, and we have to learn to deal with that. And I just did it.
Well, great job, Cecilia. It is very difficult for curators
Yes.
to try to get all that organized.
To change our chip or
Exactly. That type A organized personality.
yes.
So another thing that I was thinking about while reading the book is, were there certain sort of socioeconomic factors that determined what mourning traditions or rituals that a family could perform? So a death mask versus hair versus post-mortem photography? Did that make a difference based on, their socioeconomic status?
Pregunta sobre las características socioeconómicas que cambiaban o que influían en los ritos y en los hábitos que se hacía para el luto y para el duelo, y pregunta por el pelo y las máscaras funerarias o después ya la fotografía.
Bueno, no sé muy bien qué quiere decir con socioeconómico exactamente, pero creo entender por dónde va la pregunta. Las máscaras funerarias se hacían sobre todo a personas ilustres, ya desde el siglo XV. Entonces, era una manera de conservar el rostro, ¿no? Al fin y al cabo tenemos esa misma idea. Después se generaliza la pintura, el retrato póstumo. También familias pudientes en general. Ya no estamos solo en figuras ilustres como realeza, religiosos importantes, papas, etcétera, sino que se va democratizando con la pintura y termina democratizándose mucho más con la fotografía, aunque en un primer momento también era un objeto de lujo con el daguerrotipo y muy costoso, pero poco a poco las técnicas fotográficas permiten el acceso a la fotografía a un mayor número de personas. Creo que va por ahí la pregunta.
In the beginning, it was the 15th century when they used to do the masks, the funeral masks, and that was for people that were very distinguished and famous, and only for some. Then, after, thanks to paintings, it became a little bit more democrat, and they used to get them for wealthy families as well. Not only distinguished people, but wealthy families could do that as well, and they would get portraits painted of their deceased, of their loved ones, but it became even more democratic with photography. And that's when the first photographers came with the daguerreotypes, and that was easier, even though it was still a luxury, it was still expensive to get them. And then little by little, as photography became more common, it became easier to make pictures and to take the pictures.
And when would you say was the peak in popularity for postmortem photography, and when did it start to dwindle?
¿Cuándo fue el momento que fue más popular la fotografía postmortem y cuándo empezó allá a decaer esa popularidad?
La primera fotografía postmortem se hizo con ensayos de daguerrotipos, que ya aparece la primera cita en la academia, en la que se dice que se ensaya con cadáveres. Pero la producción más importante sería entre 1840 más o menos, o 50 mejor dicho, hasta los años 1930, pero hay un cambio en 1930-40, y es que ya no se hace un retrato único del difunto, sino que se hace todo un reportaje en el que también está ese retrato. No es que reduzca esos retratos, sino que se incorporan en un reportaje completo. Cambia un poco la manera de encargarlos. Y dura hasta los años 80, profesionalmente, 1900.
Hasta 1900.
80.
¿1980?
Sí, 1980.
So it started with the daguerreotypes, that's when it really started, but then it became more popular in the 1850s, 40s, 50s, up to the 1930s. And then there was a change at that moment, because up to that moment, they would take one picture of the body of the person, and then from that moment on, they had different pictures made, and the portrait was inside that picture. It was like a collection. Un reportaje, como un reportaje periódico.
Reportaje fotográfico son como el reportaje de la boda,
Yeah.
pues todas las etapas desde...
Like a book of pictures, yeah, and one of the pictures would be the portrait of
desde el
the deceased.
velatorio hasta el entierro, todas las etapas.
So they would take it from all the moments of, since the person is dead, to the moment of the burial.
Great. So I'm going to ask just a couple more questions, and then we're going to take some from the audience to finish up. So So it's evident that postmortem photography is still happening in the world today. How has it changed or evolved over the years? I know I've seen examples of people who have died, propped up and have, if they were into playing poker, they would have poker chips and beer bottles and that sort of thing. But can you talk about how it's evolved?
Si se sigue haciendo, cómo se sigue haciendo, en qué ha cambiado y en qué ha evolucionado. Y que ha visto fotografías donde había, si a alguien le interesaba el póker, pues fichas de póker en la foto o cerveza, si es que estaba interesado en la cerveza, por ejemplo.
En la actualidad está hablando, ¿no?
Sí, y de cómo ha evolucionado.
En el mundo occidental, voy a concentrar un poquito el contexto geográfico, hoy en día no se hacen. El paso entre el fotógrafo profesional fue que lo hicieron, empezaron a hacer las fotografías los familiares y cayó en desuso. Hoy en día, profesionalmente, se ve alguna fotografía en el caso de muertes de neonatos en el hospital. Pero es algo muy puntual y desconocido e invisible. Cuando habla de los objetos que caracterizan al difunto, es algo que se hacía desde siempre, incluso en pintura, poner, por ejemplo, el libro preferido, al lado los juguetes del niño, es algo que se hacía al principio de los primeros retratos fotográficos, para identificar los gustos o la personalidad del difunto, o sea que no es de extrañar que se introduzcan también estos objetos en la actualidad.
In the Western world, this tradition has stopped now for a long time. It used to be the family who would take pictures, but then it stopped. And the only, maybe in our society, the only pictures that they are taking, but it's something very invisible, very quiet, is of children that are stillborns or neonatos that have died, and that's the only picture. But it's very silent. It's very quiet. And about the object, it was traditional. It was more from the beginning. Even the paintings, they would put toys or books or something that reflect the likes and dislikes, or the likes of the person who had passed away.
Great. Okay, my last question.
Última pregunta.
What do you want people to take away from the book?
¿Qué quieres que la gente se lleve de este libro? Que aprenda.
De todo mi trabajo, voy a decir, y especialmente de este libro. Hoy en día, cuando las personas ven la fotografía de difuntos, suelen tener una reacción de rechazo. Pero creo que lo importante es entender en qué contexto se hicieron y que eran un encargo de la familia, es decir, una necesidad de la familia, que el fotógrafo respondía a esa necesidad en la sociedad y que intentaba hacer un retrato que fuera lo más bello posible para que la familia tuviera ese retrato y recordara la belleza en esa imagen de ese ser desaparecido. Creo que eso es lo más importante y quizás apartarse de algo más morboso o más o de rechazo que podemos tender hoy en día, puesto que apartamos todo lo que está relacionado con la muerte. La muerte, ojo, la muerte que nos recuerda que nosotros también podemos morirnos, es decir, nuestra muerte.
So nowadays, it has to do with the relationship with death. So nowadays, when we see a postmortem photography, we tend to reject it. And what she thinks that people would have to take from this book and from everything that she has done about postmortem photography is that we should see in the context of this, when these pictures were taken and why they were taken. And they were taken because of the need, the necessity of the family and the society to remember these people surrounded by beauty in a beautiful way. And that was the photographer's job. He was charged with that job, to make it beautiful and to have a memory, to have something from the person that had passed away, the loved one that had. And that's the idea. that we should all stick around and forget a little bit of the morbidity or the taboo that it might be, because of relationship with death has changed, and because when we see a picture like this, it reminds us that we might die as well, that we may die and we are going to die, and that is what she would like people to understand, this context.
Yeah, I would like to add, this is so beautiful, Virginia, and very touching. And I would like to add something more terrenal, but please keep your family archives, take care of them, take care of old photos, old letters and documentation, because they have a value. And if you have a small family collection, please take care of them for the future, because they are precious.
Absolutely. Very important and beautiful messages to close out our discussion. So thank you for that. I'm going to take some questions from the audience. Some of them Cecilia has been kind enough to answer for us already. Some of you asked, are there any examples of hidden mothers in the collection? No hidden mothers that Cecilia can recall. Someone also asked about special equipment that was used for these photographs, if they were included in the book, and they were not. So I think I covered those. Let's see what else we have here. This is a great question. There are many photographs online that are identified as post-mortem, but clearly most are not. Any thoughts about that? Were there post-mortem pictures of people standing up, for instance? And that was something I was wondering too. How do you differentiate what's a post-mortem photograph and what may not be?
Pregunta por cómo diferenciáis las fotos que son post-mortem y las que no lo son. Y no sé quién quiere contestar.
Voy a contestar. Bueno, si quieres, Cecilia, contesta también. Es una de las tareas más difíciles. Sobre todo, normalmente, cuando es obvio, es obvio. Es decir, cuando hay el ataúd, cuando hay muchas flores rodeando a un niño, sabemos. Es más dudoso cuando, por ejemplo, la madre o el padre sostiene un bebé en brazos. Hay algunos elementos que nos permite identificarlo, como por ejemplo la rigidez del cuerpo, la pesantez del cuerpo, a veces también, que se nota antinatural, pero a veces también objetos que acompañan al niño difunto, que es ahí donde es más dudoso, o a veces decimos probable post-mortem porque no podemos asegurarlo. Por ejemplo, cuando hay un ramillete de flores en las manos o ciertos elementos fisiológicos que pueden identificar al niño como difunto, coloreado o sombras, cosas así, pero a veces hay que mirar con lupa y a veces es mejor no asegurar si uno tiene duda.
So it is extremely difficult to identify them, especially when they're not in a common position, like in a coffin, which would be easy to see, or when they're in a lot of flowers surrounding a corpse or a body. But it's very difficult, for example, if there are parents, a mother or a father holding a baby in their arms, it's very difficult to know if it's a post-mortem photography or not. And what they look at is the rigidity of the body, how heavy it looks, the colors, if there are shadows, and because sometimes there are objects that can help, but some that can make it difficult, for example, if they're holding flowers. And so they have to be very careful, and sometimes they prefer to say that it's a probable post-mortem photography than affirming that it is.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that for the attendees, people don't trust Pinterest, don't trust Facebook, don't trust everything you see on social media, because not every hidden mothers with babies photos are a postmortem, and not every photo with a standing is a postmortem. Sometimes it's due to very long exposure times that photographer had to work with, and it's not a postmortem. So be careful.
Wise words of advice. Do not believe everything you read on the internet. That is very true. This one, Cecilia already answered. Is there any info in the book regarding the photographer Romualdo Garcia of Mexico, or samples of his work in the book? And she said, no, there is not. Were photographers of the time specializing in postmortem photography, or was it part of their general offerings or services?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Were photographers of the time
Okay.
specializing in postmortem photography, or was it part of their general offerings or services?
Lo que pregunta es si estaban especializados, si había fotógrafos especializados en fotografía post-mortem o si hacían esto al mismo tiempo que hacían otro tipo de fotografía.
Normalmente hacían de todo y esto era una cosa más, pero algunos fotógrafos de Estados Unidos, precisamente en el siglo XIX, se publicitaban en la prensa diciendo que hacían muy bien especialmente los retratos post-mortem. Entonces, estaban un poquito especializados algunos, o se decían especializados.
De acuerdo. So usually they would do all kinds of pictures, and one of them was post-mortem photography. But in the USA in the 19th century, there were photographers that would add themselves on papers saying they were very good at doing post-mortem photography. So maybe they were kind of specialized.
Okay. And it's sort of similar to that, would the photographers generally be local village photographers or traveling photographers?
Pregunta si los fotógrafos eran de pueblo o si viajaban, si eran ambulantes.
Ambos. Both.
Both.
Okay.
¿Quieres añadir algo, Virginia?
Los dos, pero al ser más fotógrafos de estudio, los que hacían este tipo de retratos en general o mayoritariamente, digamos que trabajaban en una zona, ¿no? Hacían los encargos de una zona y cada uno tenía su zona. Luego en las ciudades un poco distinto, ya por estudios tal. Pero también había fotógrafos ambulantes.
So there were both. There were traveling ones, and there were ones where there were studio photographers. That was the usual way it was done, and they worked in an area most of the time in the same area.
Okay. Do you have any sense of what the average fees were for the photographer to do this?
El precio, si sabéis más o menos el precio que podría estar y en cuánto se traduciría hoy en día, que lo ponía ahí.
Un daguerrotipo post-mortem en la época costaba 5 veces el sueldo de, por ejemplo, un obrero. Post-mortem, ¿eh? No. Y el post-mortem, cualquier fotografía, cualquier retrato póstumo se cobraba más, todos lo ponían. Tendrá un suplemento, ¿no? Porque no era un encargo primero agradable, el fotógrafo se tenía que desplazar, no era en el estudio, tenía que ir en urgencias, es decir, rápidamente, es decir, que el servicio era rápido, 24 horas.
¿Y las 5 veces el salario era un daguerrotipo normal o este de urgencias?
El normal ya era 5 veces, ¿no?
Es más.
Yo creo, pero al ser póstumo más, porque además se solían pedir con iluminación, con pequeños detalles pintados, o sea, coloreados, y todo eso incrementaba el precio. O sea, lo que hay que pensar es que el retrato post-mortem se trabajaba más que uno normal.
So the post-mortem photography has been always more difficult to make because of different things. But one daguerreotype at the time, just a normal one, would cost 5 times a salary, 5 salaries of a normal worker. So, yeah. So, and if it was a post-mortem one, it was more expensive because the photographer had to go urgently to the place. He had to go to the person's house. Then sometimes they would paint over the picture to make it look better. And because the light was different as well, or they asked for different things for the light, so it made it more expensive, even more expensive than a normal one.
Yes, very expensive. Okay, we have 2 more questions. We're going to finish up. One of I can answer myself. What language is the book written in? It is bilingual, so it is written in Spanish and English.
Yes.
And yep. And this is a great question. I hope the answer is yes. Are there any plans for an exhibition of the photographs that are in the book in the future?
Si tenéis
I don't
planeado
know.
hacer una exposición.
Why,
de las
why
fotos.
not? Why not?
Right.
Oh,
I think that would be
Ya hice
great.
una hace 3 años en España. Si
¿Con
quieres-
esta colección o con otras?
No con esta
Con
colección.
esta. ¿Con esta? ¿Hubo una?
No,
No.
con esta no.
Ah, con otra colección.
Mm.
They organized one 3 years ago, but not with this collection. So yeah, why not? They could do something.
I think
So
that would
why
be
not?
fantastic. Yes,
Would
why
be-
not? I would love to
It
see
would be
that.
fine to do that.
Yes.
The editor is saying at the chat, Carlos has to decide that. Really? Yeah.
We
If
have
he
to
wants.
we have to convince Carlos to do that because I think that would be fabulous. So hopefully Carlos would think that's a great idea.
Que hay que convencer a Carlos. Esperemos que piense que es una gran idea.
Well, I just want to thank you all, Cecilia, Virginia, Andy, for joining us. I think it has been such a wonderful conversation. I learned so much more by talking to you. I want to thank Carlos for popping in, and I highly encourage everyone to purchase this book. It is not only extremely informative and full of facts that you would never know about postmortem photography, but it is just absolutely a beautiful book. It really is a piece of art and history. So I highly recommend considering purchasing this book if you're interested in this subject matter. And before we go, we're going to bring on Fernando Martin, and he is going to show us what the book looks like. Hi, Fernando.
Hello, everyone. Hi, how are you? Thanks, Mallory. Thanks, everyone. Well, yeah, I would like to say thank first to the Mark Twain House, the museum, to everyone's here, Virginia, Cecilia, of course, Carlos for popping in. Yeah, I'm going to show the book, and you're actually going to be the first time that I'm showing it. I mean, we only have seen it like a few people, all from the team. So this is the box. Comes in a box with this leather here. This is golden stamping, UV varnish. Once you get the box, you open it. It's like die-cut acrylic glass. So you see here, like the picture from the outside. Then you get the book. Just cover suede, like hardcover with suede. Gold stamping also. That picture. And yeah, well, hopefully I find some interesting pages. This is like how we open the chapter. Yeah. So like this, we also have the gatefold. Sorry.
Gorgeous.
Sorry, it's kind of heavy. And yeah, I would
No
like to
worries.
show because someone at the chat asked for that. So I'm going to show the 3+ one.
Yes.
Favorite for the two. So let me see this. Okay.
Yes,
Sorry,
that's the
triplets.
famous triplets photo.
Yeah, which is Virginia's and Carlos' favorite.
Yes.
And there's also the back of the photo here with their names. Here, I think Cecilia.
Wow.
Here. And well, that's the book. We're very proud of it. There's also some prints, 12 prints ready to print. First, that come with the book. They come in an envelope, but I don't have it with me right now. This is a memorial size band. It says in memoriam, you know, the one that comes with the flowers at funerals.
Yes.
And also a facsimile of a commemorative card. Here, which one of the pictures? It comes a parade. And also, like every book, it's signed by Carlos and Virginia. Yeah, says like it's only like 1839. Which one of them is it? Like the number fan of both. And yeah, hopefully, I don't know, people like it a lot. We're very happy with the response already.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming on and showing us. As I said, you can tell in the audience it's a beautiful, beautiful book full of amazing photographs and information. So thank you all again, Fernando. Thank you for showing us the book. And thank you, ladies, for joining me. This was a pleasure to talk to you. And hopefully we will stay in touch and maybe do another round in the future and hopefully convince Carlos to do an exhibition, and maybe we can do round 2. So thank you again, and to everyone else, have a wonderful rest of the day.
Bye,
Thank
Mallory.
you so much,
Thank you.
Mallory. Thank you
Bye.
to everybody. Thank you.